I'm excited it's March because that means that the weather is maybe going to start being stable and not so up and down all the time. And while we're talking about up and down all the time, my topic today is emotional regulation. Where I live, February weather is, for me, the most depressing time of the year because I go outside one day, it's like 50 degrees outside, and it's been like 0 degrees, in January or 20 or 30 or whatever. And we've had dark, cloudy days and snowstorms and rain, and it's just yucky. It's really funny that I live in a ski state. Love it here in the summer, love it here in the spring, love it here in the fall. I hate winter, period. In February, I tend to get depressed some days because I go outside and it's raining or snowing or windy, or have these cold snaps. You go out and your hands, like your fingertips, just freeze in like 2 seconds, and my hands get so cold really fast. My temperature regulation in my extremities is very important to me when I go out running, and sometimes in February it can be warm and then suddenly turn cold within like a 20-minute period. I have to regulate my response to the temperature change because I can't regulate the temperature. And this can be difficult because there are some times when I go outside and it's warm and sunny outside and I think this is great, and I go for a run, or I could just go sit outside, or I go walk on campus between buildings just to walk because I love being outside. And maybe, I live in like the pollution center of the world, probably not in the world, but it's the pollution in Salt Lake County sometimes, and Utah County, can be pretty disgusting. So, especially in Salt Lake County where I go to school. So, sometimes like if in January the inversion gets so thick that you drive like on the freeway and I can just see this thick, looks like this big like smoke cloud descending instead of ascending. So yeah, it's really gross, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm breathing that air, and we have all these red air days that you're not supposed to go outside and run, but of course I do because I can't stand the treadmill. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do because otherwise I'll go crazy. But I am going somewhere with this, I promise. I'll get to the point in a minute, but I'm setting something up for you, okay? I'm the metaphorical type person, and so I'm into metaphors, so this is a metaphor. So anyway, so I'm going along, driving on the freeway, and it's just in January, it's so yucky, and there's just overwhelming smog and disgustation, and unfortunately we're way behind in public transportation. We're getting more light rail and buses, but as for now, it's the traffic and pollution is pretty bad here. So I go to school, and I may go into school one day in February and it may be nice and sunny. I may even go out in the afternoon, and then I'll come out like 2 hours later and it's snowing and temperatures dropped like 20 to 30 degrees, and that is no joke. It can happen that fast. Or I might go for a run in the daytime and it's nice and warm, and then the sun goes down and suddenly the temperature drops like that really fast. So those kind of temperature changes and fluctuations that happen from day to day just make me totally crazy, and I can tend to get super depressed on the days and angry on the days when it's yucky outside, or I'll finally like be happy and then like be relieved when it's warm, only to find out in 2 hours later it gets yucky again, and so it's like depression. So, and that's kind of like life if you think about it, because think about how you may go to work one day and be happy in the morning, and everything's going along, everything's good, and then you have a coworker that comes in and they are just like angry, and they carry that angry energy, and when somebody's like super angry and just like in there like ready to fire at everybody, that totally changes the atmosphere and energy like in 2 seconds, and you're like on edge, and then you start to feel angry, and then your boss comes in and tells you something that maybe you needed to perform better on, And so now you're depressed and self-loathing and you hate yourself. And then an hour later, you go out to lunch with a friend and they say, help you just to like laugh it off and say, it's going to be all right. Just don't pay so much attention to it. And you're like, yeah, you're right. And you feel relieved. And then you come back to work and maybe things have calmed down. So now you're kind of just like maintaining. And then later your boss comes in that day and says, hey, I've been thinking about that one thing I said. And I've noticed that there are others you've improved on. And so, I'm going to give you a bonus or a raise. And then you're like, ooh, I'm happy. And then the next, okay, so you get the point, like things change throughout the day. So emotional regulation is learning how to change our response to what's going on around us. And that doesn't mean that we don't feel emotion, but that we are aware of emotion and that we regulate our response to our emotion. And by regulating that, we're able to tone down intense emotions when we need to, so that they don't rule our thinking in our lives. And we do it in a healthy way, because we actually do the same thing with our eating disorders, believe it or not. We emotionally regulate with our eating disorders. It's just that the way we regulate is destructive and maladaptive. But really, everybody emotionally regulates, because we respond to our emotions, and whether we are aware that we're regulating or not, we really are doing that. It's just, are you doing it in a way that is healthy or unhealthy? Are you regulating your emotions by being impulsive and, say you're sad, and so your response is, well, I'm going to go take drugs and to dull that sadness, or I'm going to go purge, or I'm going to go binge, or I'm going to go exercise for 20 hours. And not that I'm saying it's always bad if you're in extreme sports like I am, then sometimes I do exercise for 20 hours, but I don't exercise for 20 hours every day, and it's usually an event, not something I go out and do just because on a whim I decided that I hate myself. No, something that I've prepared and planned for and worked up to, and have the proper nutrition. And so, if you look at that, you can do the same thing sometimes, and it's your approach to it. So if I were to be mad one day and say, I hate myself, so I'm going to go run 50 miles because it'll make me feel like I'm doing justice by punishing everybody else and myself, and that I'm burning calories, and that I have to do this because this horrible thing has happened, and so I have to punish myself, versus, wow, this would be a really cool event to accomplish in my life, and I would really love to be out there running with other runners and experience the culture and try and get a PR and do my best, and I know that no matter what, I will have a fun time out there, and I will accept the outcome because I know that I'll have prepared my best, and whatever happens will happen. But I'm not going to beat myself up if I don't get my time, or if I have to quit for some reason or another. That's a different approach to regulation, and a different, and it's less impulsive. So if you, for example, are planning on going out to lunch with a friend, and you're using food as an enjoyment of the process, and you're probably going to eat a little bit more that day because it's a great restaurant with great food and you want to experience the whole thing, and it maybe could be considered a binge amount of quality food that day, but you don't stress about it, and you go on with life, and you're not doing that every day, and you're not doing it as a response to an emotion. So whereas if I say, I've had a bad day at work, I'm going to go to McDonald's, to the drive-thru, and then I'm going to go to a different restaurant, and just, you know what I'm saying. Like, I don't even get into details, but if you're using that as a response to your emotion, then you're emotionally regulating, but you're doing it in a way that is going to perpetuate the negative. So instead, finding ways to tone down that emotion that are healthy by saying something like, I'm really angry now, so I'm going to go out for a walk, and while I'm walking, I'm going to take some deep breaths, and I'm not walking to punish myself, I'm walking because I want to become in touch with my present surroundings, and that's a really good thing to do, to ground yourself by becoming in touch with your present surroundings. Or I'm going to go listen to really angry music for a while, but when I start with a really angry song, then the next song will be less angry and then less angry and less angry, and that helps you tone down the emotions. So doing things like that, or talking to people in a way that, if you're angry at somebody, that may not be the moment to go talk to them, but maybe you need to go vent and then come back and then use I statements to talk to a person, but only after you've regulated your emotion by toning it down. So that is emotional regulation, and it is very important in recovery to learn to emotionally regulate using healthy ways of doing that.